there's a lot that's happening
There's a whole lot
in the school district. I mean, first off, we are down one school board director. So
Yes.
we have this really contentious 3-3 split on our school board. And so just wondering, you know, like I wasn't able to really go. I listened and heard, but if you want to also catch up, everybody who's joining us that missed the school board meeting last week and what happened with the strike and what's leading to the, you know, the potential strike that OEA is calling.
Yeah, so there's a lot. You know, we've been working. Teachers in Oakland have been working without a contract since October, and Oakland, our union has undertaken a big bargaining in a new way that we've really never done before, but is modeled after things that are happening in Los Angeles, in St. Paul, in Sac City. Lots of, and you know, we've been moving towards it in our union over the last few years. But it's we have a 50-person bargaining team, over 50 people, and each of our sites was tasked with, you know, getting one person to represent us at the bargaining table. Not every single school, you know, had that capacity, but we've got quite a few schools represented, and they have a amazing, robust, beautiful contract proposal that would go a long ways to winning the safe, stable, racially just community schools that Oakland students deserve. It's not everything, right, but it's something. Right. It's a lot. It's a big step. And unfortunately, it has been really in the last week or less that the district has showed up and has taken any of this work seriously. So we've been waiting for them to actually bargain with us, and they haven't. And so we're now at this point where today at 5 o'clock, there will be an announcement as to whether or not teachers in Oakland will be going on strike. There will be at least a 48 or 72-hour notice, so that for all of us to get our classrooms ready, for families to get childcare ready, for school communities to figure out how we're going to, you know, handle this. And it's not something that any of us want to do, but unfortunately it has taken this, getting to this point, for the district to actually, the district level management to actually take our bargaining team seriously and come to the table with real proposals. And, you know, we've been asking since before January, but definitely since January, when the new school board was seated, for the school board to really that they direct bargaining. They have, you know, the power to tell the district to you know, to bring a fair proposal, and that hasn't happened, you know, that still has to happen. And really it's become clearer and clearer that, as you mentioned, there's a 3-3 split on the board. The three progressive members of the school board, Valerie Batchelor, Ben Cedric Williams, and Jennifer Brohard, have been very supportive and advocating for a fair contract. And unfortunately, the other three school board members are toting the district line that a quote-unquote historic raise has been offered. That historic raise is 3.5%, which is historically bad. And it's really unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. There's definitely some huge, the community is very disappointed. Teachers, community members are very, very disappointed, especially in folks that ran on a progressive, you know, platform. Sam Davis, Mike Hutchinson ran on a progressive pro-teacher, pro-labor platform, and they have turned their backs on the students of Oakland.
Appreciate that pretty lengthy background. You know, for a lot of folks who don't know, you know, when it comes to bargaining units, like they're usually, you know, maybe 10, maybe 15, depending on the
Yeah.
size of the membership. But, you know, it's usually a very small cohort of people, usually the folks who are in the executive committee or the executive board of the union. But this is kind of unprecedented. Like my understanding is that many of the folks who are on the bargaining team are in very specialized parts of and are bringing in their expertise around these very specific subject matters. So a lot of folks think that like bargaining is about like new contracts are just about the salary raises. And in fact, it's not, right? Like I know that OEA has this big platform. There's, you know, quite a few pieces on there, 9 to 10 different platform issues, right? So like strong culturally, I'm looking at it right now,
Yeah.
strong culturally relevant curriculum, high quality, equitable teaching, trying to stave against the school closures, really thinking about reparations for Black students, student transportation, authentic shared decision making, supporting unhoused students. A lot of folks voted for Measure V, which was to extend just cause laws, including protecting students from being evicted and their families being evicted during school year. But we know that that's still, you know, with the eviction moratorium coming, like what does that really mean and how will this be enforced is really important for us to look at. There's also utilization formula, and I think I said it, but environmental justice, right? So there's components to the components to this that aren't just about salaries, right? Because a lot of times, like people who are against strikes are like, "How could you do that? You're so selfish!" Da 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 da, you know, and you just want a raise. And first off, like, what's wrong with a raise? Living in this type of economy, but second, my understanding is that Oakland teachers are paid the least amount in Alameda County, right? 27% less than other teachers on average in Alameda County. Like, that's really ridiculous.
It is very ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, we know we work in Oakland. We are not here. People who work in Oakland are not in this work for the money, you know, but we do have to pay rent. We do have to feed our families, and we do have to, you know, get by. And people want to live near where they work. They want to live in their community, and that's just not something that's feasible for especially our newer teachers, newer to the profession. But even as you go up and as you've been around in the union work longer, it's still very challenging to make ends meet in Oakland for many folks. And so we've heard loud and clear that you know, salary is a big issue. It's about 22 or 23% lower. We are paid 23% lower than the median, and so that's a lot of. Makes it very enticing for teachers to leave and go work in other districts nearby. And I watch every year as some of my best coworkers, my best colleagues, either at my own school or at schools, you know, at the schools around me, or people that I know, leave because they were able to afford to buy a house in Antioch. So why not work there? You know, they were able to afford to buy. They couldn't afford to buy in Oakland. They couldn't afford, so they're moving there, and then they're deciding to work there also. So I think that's you know, the salary issue is really critical to our students' success because there's so much teacher turnover. And we really need stable schools for our students. Our students really need folks who are experienced, folks who aren't worried about making the rent in the classroom. They need, you know, it's very demanding work to work in Oakland, to teach in Oakland, and that hasn't, you know, the district, while many of these districts around us are offering 15-20% raises, the district has offered us a 3.5% raise and an extra raise in exchange for extra hours of work. And it's really buying into this idea that, which is what kind of, the district perpetuates, that if we just teach kids more, if we just
work harder, like why don't you work harder for that extra money, like that you don't already deserve to get paid.
We all know that it's not about teachers not working hard enough or kids not having enough time in the classroom. It's about racism and poverty. Like, those are things that, and no matter how hard I work in my classroom, I cannot erase student experiences outside of my classroom, outside in their communities, in their own school. Because I know my daughter goes to a school here in Fruitvale that they had a press conference on Friday at her school because the rat infestation has gotten so bad and the ceiling has been crumbling in classrooms. And they've been reaching out and out and out to help. Parents filed Williams complaints and nothing. Now, today, the buildings and grounds showed up because they had a press conference. So kids know kids feel that. They feel that. So they might have the kindest, caring, most amazing individual teaching the lesson. But if the ceiling is crumbling, if they're going home and sleeping in a car, if they, whatever, all the ways that they're experiencing poverty and racism, those are the things that hinder their learning. So, there is no way that we as educators in Oakland couldn't try to address those things in our contract as well. It is completely linked to what we do, and we know that. So we're bringing a lot to the table. Like you mentioned, there's all sorts of articles of the contract that we're addressing, and we have it's early childhood educators are writing the contract language for early childhood education. Okay. Special ed teachers are writing the language for special ed, the special ed aspects of the contract. High school counselors are writing the language that they need for high school counselors. And it's very different. And exactly like you mentioned, the last time we did a big bargain, we bargained around our whole contract, our bargaining team had 5 people on it. Right. So that means people are writing, are bargaining contract language that they might not, the work of the school system is huge. I don't know. Even after 20 years in public schools, I don't know what is a good thing for high school counselors. I teach kindergarten, or for librarians, or I might say, oh, this is a great idea. Let's do that. Let's have the librarians do this. Right. But an actual librarian is going to say, no, that's not my job. Right. So I think that, that's just very exciting. And then on top of it, we are following again in the pathway of districts across the country, taking on what is being referred to as common good bargaining, where we're saying, this issue isn't in our contract, and you legally might not have to address it, but we are going to address it because this is how we're going to get to the root causes and the root solutions to the problems in public schools. So that has to do with addressing the needs of our unhoused students, addressing environmental justice concerns.
I think I was seeing that I was seeing in the, was that because Oakland Rising and many other organizations have signed on to a letter. Yes. Really pushing on the school district, the superintendent, and the school board, that there are about 1,300 unhoused students. And we're expecting them to show up and be fully present. The stress of just being unhoused, the stress of coming to school is one thing. It's another. Yeah. And to not be able to address that. Yeah. I feel like that's one of the reasons why this, we are in full support of a potential strike and a new contract, is because of this common good
Yes.
demands, right? Because I mean, on top of the, just being able to give our teachers a wage that they can live under, live with.
Yes.
Yeah. How can, I see in the chat, someone put, how can we get more teachers involved with breakthrough featuring curriculum at, that promotes anti-violence and hostilities inside and outside prison? You know, I think that's part of what this good, common good, like contract is really trying to face, right? Is really looking at like, how do we address not only like the conditions of that the teachers are working under, but also how do we create school environments that really understand its like integral relationship to the community
Yeah.
and the students who are coming there to go to school, right?
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And I think, the reparations for Black students policy that was passed, almost a year ago now, I think. And a lot of the linked into that, some of the, restorative justice language and things that will actually, that teachers, the resources we need in our schools, instead of police, are, haven't been given the funding that the district promised. And so you can have beautiful anti-racist policy and language and slogans and, Facebook profiles, but if there's no funding behind it, it means nothing. And so I think that, the work, the common good bargaining work, the work of the reparations for Black students, all those, we have been, since our 2019 strike, just really working in coalition. Oakland Rising has been a big part of that work and a super helpful member, a group that we've engaging with other community orgs and bringing in parents. We surveyed over 1,000 parents, a pretty detailed survey that led us to our priorities in in helping prioritize what were our common good demands. And for sure, I mean, of those 1,000 parents that we surveyed, which were, just a
small portion,
small portion, and it's a lot of work to get those things done.
Yeah.
That, 13% were unhoused or facing, housing crises. I have 2 unhoused students in my classroom. These are the realities of our schools in the Flatlands, particularly, and we as educators need the resources and the support to fully meet the needs of these students. Yeah. And I think it's just been a beautiful way that our organizations across the city have been coming together, and all the support that we've gotten is so, that OEA has gotten is so humbling and powerful. And I'm super excited for this contract that we have, that we're going to get soon. And I'm super excited for what comes next, because I think we're just building the foundations for continuing to grow a movement for really vibrant, joyful, anti-racist public schools in Oakland. And we are, we've come a long way since where we were in 2019 when we went on strike last time.
And fun fact, I was one of the parents that were part of the press conference to announce that first strike.
I remember that.
And, I and my kids were right next to me, and then we supported a lot of the work that went into, the community schools that then popped up afterwards in order to take care of those 60,000 students who were not going to school, right? We kept them fed, like there was small, This is the way like community really showed up for teachers and really showed up for the school district as a whole. I'm wondering if we could go back to, I've just been thinking about how the school, like what it would have meant if we had been able to get an appointment to the District 5 seat on the school board. And my understanding is that, that there are few folks on the school board who really were opposed to pushing for the appointment and pushing for the school district and to actually run a special election. And so there's a couple of things that just confused me about it. One being like, it's not a small amount of money to run a special election, you know, and even if they decided to like save money on this and push it to the March election, we would spend the next 11 months or so without a school board director representing District 5. Like, I think that's, and for all that was being called about, like, this is a democratic move, this is the most democratic way to do this, for me, blew my mind to think to leave then a position without a representation, to have an entire district, mostly of folks that live in the flatlands, right? It's almost all flatland neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right in the Fruitvale and Bartlett, like all the way up. Like, for me, just confused the hell out of me. And then to say, you know, like, oh, we're not going to give you this tree. We're just going to offer you this Peasley, like, little 3% thing because we don't have enough money, but we want to run a special election. Like, the contradictions that are laid in that aren't the same as like, oh, you know, I didn't throw my recycling in the recycling bin. I threw it away in the garbage. You know, it's not that kind of contradiction. It's like the kind of contradiction where you're blown away at the rhetoric that like speaks to a really, truly undemocratic process, right? To move where we have policies in place that allow for a vacant seat to be appointed. They just appointed somebody at the Board of Supervisors. So I don't understand like why we're in this position here. And so to see the massive amounts of contradictions that are coming out of the school board and from particular school board members is really, really disturbing to me. And I'm wondering though, like just in terms of this like potential strike and around this contract negotiations, you know, where folks can learn and find out, right? Because I'm pretty sure parents are like, and people, you know, like, oh crap, you know, what's coming next? Because we just went through this strike that went on for several weeks, you know, like you mentioned 5 years ago. And what will it mean now? Like, what are the ways that people can support, first of all? But where can people find out more information tonight if OEA decides to strike?
Yes. First, just to the completely agree with you around the question of the District 5 seat. I'm a D5 resident. My kids go to school, District 5, and District 5 is currently the seat that the district that does not have a representative on the school board. So my kids go to school in District 5 schools. I teach at a District 5 school and I live in District 5. So I deeply feel I am one of the many people here in District 5 who are not represented on the school board at this point. And that when this situation with the roof collapsing at my daughter's school happened, I had to call the District 3 representative. I don't have a school board member that is, and thankfully, you know, he came out and saw and got in touch with folks and advocated on the school's behalf. But there isn't anybody speaking for District 5 schools right now or holding that work of engaging and talking to those families, especially in a time when we are parent groups. There are active, well-funded parent groups in the Hills who are making their voice very, very loud and using their resources to get lots of media attention. Folks who are predominantly white, all middle or upper class parents, attend schools in the Hills and have an opinion against the union and against our strike that isn't and are speaking, not only sharing it as their what they want, which is fine to feel how they feel, but speaking on behalf of the Black and brown families in the Flatlands that they feel are being harmed by the union. And I think it's just we all know that the families here, we are having OEAs holding parent meetings across the district. We have a massive petition that has 3,000 signatures almost on it, of families across all of Oakland. We have gotten nothing but support. When I attended the parent meeting at my daughter's school, the entire room was extremely supportive. All they wanted to know was how they could help. The same was at parent meetings at my own school. So that isn't actually the reality. And we need all of the families in the Fruitvale need a person on the school board who speaks for them. Director Hutchinson was our school board member. I personally knocked on a lot of doors for him, and I could not be more disappointed in what I see happening in his decisions on the school board. And I think we need an appointment right away. Our city and our district do not have the funds to hold an election. And when there was a vacancy in D6, there was an appointment made by these same folks who are now saying that that's an undemocratic decision. At that time, they knew they had the majority votes to get a privatizer aligned with their politics appointed, and so they're worried now. They know that they would have that they would have to be forced to appoint a progressive labor-backed candidate right now, and they're afraid of that. So unfortunately, we are in that situation, and I really hope. I think one big, huge way that folks can help is by reaching out to folks on the school board, reaching out to our superintendent, our city council members, and letting them know that the voters of District 5 shouldn't be disenfranchised any longer. And then other ways, I think, to find out what's happening, things are happening in very fast. While we were speaking, I'm getting very fastly. I'm getting, the latest bargaining update. They're sending out bargaining updates to members every hour or two. And so I'm not sure what's happening. They're at the table right now. My understanding is that Tony Thurmond has come. They are at the table bargaining as hard as they can right now. Unfortunately, yesterday, our 50-person bargaining team from OEA was at, they were supposed to bargain all day yesterday. They arrived at 10 o'clock. They were supposed to meet at 10 o'clock. The district was not prepared. So our bargaining team waited. The district was in one room and our bargaining team was in the other. And they waited and waited and waited. Around 6 o'clock, they came in for about 10 minutes. The district came into the room for about 10 minutes. Then they left again. And they didn't come back until 10:30 p.m. So our bargaining team waited from 10 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. on a Sunday night. Everybody on our bargaining team is also a classroom teacher. So at 10:30 p.m., the superintendent showed up to a room of people who had to teach the next day. It's just appalling. And so that's where they're at.
And that's a tactic, right? That's a tactic often used by the school district, but also used by corporations who don't want to, give in to the demands of the bargaining unit and the bargaining contract.
Yeah.
And so, I think like folks being able to call in to some of those school district directors right now in support of appointing somebody who could come to the table and maybe break the tie that could, push us to a place where, where a contract could be met, pushing so that folks can stay in touch and continue to follow Oakland, follow OEA. And just so folks know, Tony Thurmond is the state superintendent, right? And education intendant, so superintendent. So for folks to follow along, and then my understanding is that OEA is going to be having a press conference tonight, correct?
Yes, there will be a press conference tonight at 5. And you know, the best way to stay on up to date there is by following us by following OEA Oakland EA on Oakland Education Association on any social media platform. They're even on TikTok now.
Oh,
So
we got a TikTok.
Yeah.
Fancy.
I'm not. I don't know anything about TikTok, but they do. There are there's another generation of teachers coming in to the the workforce. So, so yeah, there's the bargaining updates from the bargaining table are being shared on our social media platforms that are both for teachers and for the community to follow. And the press conference will be the announcement tonight as to whether or not we will be going on strike. Will be at 5 tonight and will be live streamed on the Oakland Education Association's live stream on social media platforms, as well as I think all the major media networks are following this issue right now. That unfortunately it also takes this kind of issue to action to get media to really cover, mainstream media to cover the reality of what schooling looks like in Oakland. And a lot of the pushback against the idea of a strike right now is that we just returned from the pandemic. There was a lot, that was a lot. That was the impact on that on students and families and teachers was a lot. We realized that. I also think, but I just think that again, when those folks who have been working in inner city schools, folks who have been living and sending their children into schools in the Oakland Flatlands know that things were bad before the pandemic. And they've been bad for generations. Racism, poor educational outcomes, and the trauma was here way before the pandemic.
Yes. I grew up in Oakland, and I remember that clearly my parents were like, we can't send you here to these schools, so we're actually going to bus you. We're going to try to get you into another school district because the conditions were really awful. And then, we thought, could it get worse? And it did. I remember Fremont High locking its gates, and tiles similar to the conditions that your daughter's school is. The tiles were falling on top of students. They didn't have working toilets, so kids were jumping over fences to run to the bathroom, and then didn't go back to school because they couldn't get back in because the gates were locked. Having books that were from the 1970s being taught in schools in the 90s. And there was a lot of youth organizing that happened as a result of that, right? Shout out to Youth Together and Uprising and some of these other organizations that really led a movement of youth that fought against those. And then we went under, the state as a part of that, right? Because the school district continued to fail its students. And we're back here again where we are seeing that our schools are being closed. To me, it just shows that Oakland is really on the cusp of really trying to rid ourselves of public schools and prioritize those of corporations. And, as a school district, when you have a school district that owns about 500 acres of land in Oakland, if you begin to close them and you have budgets that need to be filled, what do? You either lease it or sell it. And who benefits from that aren't the people of Oakland that currently live here. It is the corporations and developers who are going to make a killing off of that. So for us, it's part of a larger agenda in terms of how do we continue to privatize? How do we continue to make Oakland a place where it's an extractive situation? So we're taking off the labor of our people, taking from the land, taking from our native folks, taking from our, our housing, from our people, like to see a city that went from, you know, 45, 50% Black to 25% Black, and it's continuing to bleed out. Like what this city does and does not want to do for its citizens and for its people that live here, like I think is reflective in this teachers contract negotiation process. And so thank you so much though for like the work that you're doing on the bargaining unit as a teacher, as a parent, as a like resident of Oakland, and like the demands that you all are making. Like we don't, you know, we can't think about it in a silo, like, oh, that's her kids, you know, those are those kids over there. But it really, like, if we aren't taking care of our schools, we aren't taking care of our communities. It's all part of the ecosystem.
It's all connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So appreciate you. So 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Yep.
5 o'clock. Check out OEA. Go to their all of their social media. So it's Oakland underscore EA. Sorry, Oakland underscore EA. You can also search for it, Oakland Education Association. Go to any of those. They'll be live streaming at 5 o'clock today. If you like these kinds of things that we're doing here at Oakland Rising, you know, keeping you up to date with how things are moving and grooving in Oakland, like continue to follow us, Oakland Rising. You can go to our website, oaklandrising.org/donate if you want to throw a few bucks our way. We really appreciate it. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining, and thank you so much, Liz, for having me.
Yep. Have a great day.